and then what we do. Jan works with all of the students with English and advanced reading and writing and literature and those kind of things. I teach mostly theology for both the deaconess and the pastoral students. So this is where our church is working today. And when I say our church, I'm talking about the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod. And it's really kind of interesting to see what's going on there. We have partner churches in various places in Africa, and that great island next to Africa there probably has, if not the greatest number of Lutherans, the second greatest number of Lutherans in one church body in the world. At last count, I think Madagascar had over 7 million Lutherans there. If we get a chance sometime, I don't know if we'll have time today, the 6 mission priorities of the Synod, I'd really kind of like to talk to you about that sometime, because I am very pleased with what our Synod is doing today compared to 15, 20 years ago. Now, one of the good points is there's a closer connection between congregations, individuals, and mission work that's going on, because our Synod basically has no money for missions, and so if you want to serve in missions, you have to go out and solicit the people in Synod to support you. Now, in some ways, that's not ideal, but it does do this. It gives Jan and myself a wonderful opportunity to meet people that we normally don't get to meet. It gives us a wonderful opportunity to see the love of Christ working throughout our church. We have been, this summer, we have been in Kansas City, Missouri. We've been in Frona, Missouri. Yes, spelled with an N-A on the end of my name. No relations there that I can think of. We have been in Sacramento. I've been up in Oregon, Portland, Oregon, and this past week also in Medford, Oregon, where they had some things going on. And then we had 2 weeks of training in St. Louis. But it was really worthwhile because they tried to teach me about computers, and I was totally lost. But other than that, the 6 mission priorities, let me just go through those quickly. This one, number 2, is expand theological education. That's what I'm involved in. And number 6 on this chart, which I really appreciate, is connect human care with altar and pulpit. And there has been a dichotomy there throughout mission work in the world, where the care of the individuals becomes the goal, not the salvation of souls. And so I'm happy to see there's an attempt at putting that back together the way I believe the scriptures teach it. Now, when you hear the term mission, what do you think about? What do you think about it? Anyone?
Foreign.
Foreign, okay. Yeah, by the way, thank you, Gary, our Synod now has 2, with our new constitution, we have 2 mission boards. We have a national mission board and an international mission board, okay? And I don't know that that's all bad either, because sometimes we lose focus that mission is our neighbor next door, too. And that's a helpful thing to keep in mind. Anything else? Well, let me just tell you a little bit about my experience when I was about 6 or 7 years of age. I was in a small church in Minnesota, and that circuit would gather together at the fairgrounds, local fairgrounds, and once a year, and they would have a mission festival. And they would normally bring in some missionary who would tell us all these exotic things about what was going on. Well, mission, the form for mission has changed considerably since that time. But here was my picture of missions when I was a 6-year-old. Leopards and lions and elephants and people living in grass huts. Well, all of that is still true to some extent. These are all pictures I've taken in the last few years in Kenya. So this, to some extent, it's true. But when we think of mission that way, we lose sight of the real object of mission. And mission, as you heard in today's epistle, is for the life of the world. And the gospel, Jesus says, I am the bread of life. Only Jesus, and Jesus only. And so whenever we take that equation out of mission, it might be service, but it's not mission in the way we normally think of mission as the proclamation of the gospel. So just think about those things as we go through this. Jan and I, you've met before. You don't need an introduction to us. But I would like to share this with you. We have 4 children, 4 grandchildren. One of them you know, and 3 of them you might have seen on occasion. They visited us once or twice. My daughter Liz is a member here, I think. What do I know? I'm in Kenya, outside of the year. But in the last few years, we have a few more children. And this is a picture of our family now. This is the theological faculty and students at Matango Theological College. There's about 84, 86 students in that picture, several faculty members. Next to me is Dr. Tom Omolo, who recently got his doctor's degree from Concordia Seminary in St. Louis. And to the far right is Dr. Tom Ogland, who is our housemate as well when we're in Kenya. He has now colloquialized into the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod, and he too now is LCMS missionary. So we are putting forward our best foot. The deaconess is here in the front, and the pastoral students behind. This is the work in the world where we're working. And it's amazing to me what's really going on there. We've got some marvelous things going on in almost every nation of the world. Just to give you some extent, you know where California is. Kenya is here, okay? That's a bit of a jaunt, literally almost halfway around the world. In non-daylight savings time, 11 hours difference. Right now, 10 hours difference. It's amazing for me to think at noon today, the people in Kenya will be in bed, you know. And I think of you often like that, wishing I had time. This is where we're working in Africa currently. South Africa, the Democratic Republic of Congo, Togo, Ghana, Nigeria, Ivory Coast, Liberia, Sierra Leone, Guinea, Gambia now, Burkina Faso, way inland over here. They have a seminary there, and we have just sent 2 professors as missionaries to be there. You might recognize this next speaker here.
Hi, I'm Matt Harrison, president of the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod, and we're here in the Concordia Historical Institute Museum in the LCMS International Center in St. Louis. And here we have to my right a picture of Ferdinand Sievers, a guy you probably never heard of. He was sent to Michigan by the Umlea in the 1840s. He became a missionary to Ojibwe Indians, and because of Sievers, many, many Lutheran congregations were planted all across the northern Great Lakes. Over 100 years ago, a man named Theodor Nazer took his family to be a missionary in India. Who would have thought that the result would be our first international partner church, our first mission plant, a church now with hundreds of thousands of believers in Christ from India. He gave everything he had, and in fact died of it. What an amazing effort. And you know, efforts like this are still going on all over the world. Missionaries in the 4 corners of the earth, lay people, We have pastors, we have deaconesses, faithful men and women, and their families often with them, in places that are often lonely, sharing the gospel of Christ, teaching about Christ, teaching in schools and doing all kinds of other activities, having mercy on people in the name of Jesus. And that's just what Jesus wanted. The Bible tells us that Jesus had compassion on the multitudes, and then he said, pray the Lord of the harvest send workers. Well, the moment is right for us. Because of the Missouri Synod's strong biblical positions, the Lutheran world is coming to us. Huge churches looking to us for help in theological leadership, in training their own missionaries, in training their own pastors, their deaconesses. And that's just one big part of what's happening worldwide in mission. There is a veritable tectonic shift going on, and we need people right now all over the world. The gospel message shall fly forth all around the world for the salvation of many souls. Thank you for your support. God bless.
For those of you who are not familiar with your geography, this is a map of Kenya. You notice here, Somalia is to its east. Somalia, does anyone know about Somalia? That's where the pirates hang out. And they now have found forensic evidence that the monies that were given to buy back, redeem the ships that had been taken, were used to build mosques in Kenya. Kenya is kind of the cornerstone of Africa. And if Kenya becomes less than at least an open nation, if it becomes an Islamic nation, all of Africa will probably fall. So, two things about that. I don't know what the government's doing, but I know what the church is doing. And the church is endeavoring to teach people about Christ. It was in this area last spring, in March, where they had where people came across the border and killed 100 and some students at a Christian university there. And that's in retaliation for Kenya's incursions of trying to wipe these tyrants out. So that's what happened. Here is Nairobi. This is the capital city. This is where we fly in. We teach up here. This is Kisumu and this is Kisii. We are about halfway, right there, between Kisumu and Kisii. That's where Matango Theological College is located. Kisumu is on Lake Victoria here. It is very warm most of the year, every time I've been there. As a matter of fact, about 1 hour and I start wilting when I'm in Kenya. And it's humid, okay? It's kind of a Sacramento summer heat with humidity. So put that there. So it's kind of fun to go back to Matango because we are 1,800, almost 1,800 meters high, which is almost a mile high, and where we are in the mountains, and it's not cool, but cooler, much cooler than it is at Kisumu. Kisumu is where we go to get our groceries that are long-term staples. And let me just show you a little bit about us. This is the home we live in. This is called Karabuni House, guest house. And this is, was built by the Swedes in the 1980s. And the roof you can't see, but it's made of asbestos, and not the most healthy thing. And as I joke with my wife, well, if the Lord gives us 30 more years, we may die of asbestos poisoning in the lungs. So it's not a big challenge to me right now, but I wouldn't want to raise my children there. Now, I will come back to that in a moment. This is at the lowest point of our campus, and this is about 1,710 meters. The high point of our campus is 1,793. Okay? So when Mrs. Fro goes there, she plays the trumpet. And the first week back, we leave at least 15 minutes early because it takes a little jaunt to get to the top of the campus where the chapel is located. Do any of you recognize that? It was the Kyrie. The Kyrie. In Swahili,
Oh, okay.
Bwana, Lord, and tu, have mercy. Okay, Rehemu. Christ, have mercy. Lord, have mercy. The same thing we sang, or didn't sing today, but we'll sing eventually today. Sorry about that. We were kind of, should we start or not? So next time I will get it. See, that's what happens when you have two subs at the same time. This is our chapel area, and we'll come back to that a little bit later. This is a picture of our road. You might need to cut the lights a little bit again. This is about halfway up from this little village down below. It's called Kibera. I call this the Great Kibera Highway. That is fun. Okay? And when it doesn't rain, you really feel like you get a workout when you get to the bottom. And when it does rain, you go up and down the hill like this. And that will explain why we got the vehicle we did eventually. But this Kibera is below 1,700 meters. So from Kibera up to Kibera is below 1,600 meters. So it's about 100 meters uphill from Kibera on that road just to get to our house. And the next picture, I think, will give you some idea. This is from the road looking down into the valley. Okay, so the other direction. Beautiful area, though. You can see it's terraced and farmed. The bad news is, in order to protect everyone, they passed a law that everyone would inherit from the father, not just the favorite son or whatever. So everyone, including women. The bad part is reasonably sized farms now are less than an acre. Okay? And so they no longer can sustain one family. So people are more and more migrating to the cities so that they can find work. The point here, at the bottom here, this area right here, we are at about 1710. This is 1725. Okay? At the top here, where you start going into that building, it's 1750. Okay? And then you come out on the other side, and that's still the bottom side. This is the top side, 1760. Okay? And we're not done yet. Then we get to go up even higher. You see another set of steps coming up, and then we get to the upper part of the campus, where we have, this is our cafeteria, and the next picture will show it even better. This used to be the student lounge. It's now a classroom / student lounge. That's good news, because we needed the space. This is the newly revamped undercover area for the students to eat, and they can also eat in the cafeteria itself. This may not seem like much to people here in Roseville, but it's very important to us at Matango. This little drum up there, which is quite huge actually, is our water supply. And our water supply is well water. And it is pure. It's one of the neat things that has changed since I first went there. We now have that plumbed with new pipe into Karabuni House. So when we take a shower, we don't have to worry about getting water in our eyes or in our mouth. We can now brush our teeth from the faucet. We drink this water without purifying it. It's a wonderful experience to have after you're in Kenya. Things we take so for granted here, you know, it's just not quite the same thing. And this is the top part of our campus. This is our current temporary chapel and our large lecture hall. I have some inside pictures. That's the size of it. And this, now we have the chapels set up at the other end. Moving downhill the other direction from the top of the campus, we see one building, but that's actually 3 buildings. They're men's dorms, and you can see that the lower building here is about right up here. So it's on a hill, and it keeps going down. So we're literally on the crown of that hill, which is rather nice for us. This is our local market, about a half a mile away from us, where the great Chibera Highway turns into the road that goes there. And the ladies sit there and sell their wares, their produce, I should say. Across the street from that, on the other side of the Chibera Highway, is our local store. That's the green building there. It is not the kind of store we're used to. If any of you have ever been in Pennsylvania in a state liquor store, that's the way this store is. You go up, there's a bar there, so you can't get in, and the man, you tell the man what you want, and he hands it through the bars to you. Otherwise, things in Kenya grow legs rapidly and just disappear. Oh, by the way, the yellow buckets there that you see are for water, clean water, okay? This is the major form of transportation. There are 4 people on that cycle. It is a 2-cycle engine. Those of you who have chainsaws know what that is. You put oil in the gas and it keeps it, and it's a putt-putt, but it does the thing. I have seen as many as 6 or 7 people on one of these at a time. Yes, scary. I have forbidden my wife ever to set foot on one. But that's not the worst one. They also have matatus. I don't have a picture of matatu here. It's a 12-passenger Toyota where they usually put 18 to 20 people in. And they pass me constantly on the roads, and I know they're speeding because I am, and they're still passing, okay? And every so often you'll hear of terrible accidents involving matatus. This is the local clinic, and it's part of the MLTC campus. And we also have a teachers training college at one end of the campus. This is in the middle, and our facilities are down below. This is the main point to eat in Kenya. This is called ugali. It is, this is what they call brown ugali. It's made out of maize and millet. They mix it together. Those of you who have ever taught or made your children Play-Doh, that's the recipe for ugali, okay? And without the millet, I don't eat it, okay? But it's pure white and tastes like Play-Doh without any seasoning. But the people use that as their utensil. They take it when it's hot, they form it into a spoon, and they use it to get their gravy, as they call it, their sauces off of the meat. Everything there is sauced because that's the only way to spice it. One of my tasks, I'm at a local parish here about 5-6 miles from where we live, called Magar Parish, and at the end of the service, I'm a community pastor. This is something called a synod, and every parish gathers together all of its people once or twice a year, and they come on Friday night, and on Saturday they bring in a speaker from the seminary usually, and they have a discussion on a topic. This one I think was worship or liturgy, I don't remember. I've done about 3 or 4 of these now, and then the next day they have a divine service, which lasts about 3.5 hours. And so anytime you think you have to get home to watch your local football team in Kenya, let me just say, it's not going to happen, okay? It just doesn't work that way. There were about 1,000 people here for this service on Sunday. This is our chapel again, and the deaconesses are very proud because they made these pyramids under the auspices of Mama Deaconess Janet, okay? And so I serve also as Dean of Chapel. I'm also a professor and chair of practical theology. This is one of our bachelor's programs. And this is Jan. She's a teacher to teachers. Next to her is a gal who's translating into Luo. And over here, I'm glad you can see this because there's a whole group of younger parents and teachers who are eagerly watching Jan teach. This is how they teach in Kenya. Here is what you must know for the test. Blah, 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 blah. Okay? And the students rarely have textbooks. That is, one of the things we do is we bring textbooks. And we just purchased them this last week or so. And it comes, and CPH now gives me 50% off, thanks to you, God. 50% off. And it still came, just the CPH bill was $900. And those books go to the students mostly. Don't tell them that, because I'm not supposed to be doing all that, but I'm doing it. So, okay. And so the same thing for our deaconesses. They have, so we choose our textbooks very carefully so that they have good textbooks that they will be able to use once they leave the seminary campus.
In English?
They're in English, yeah. English is the Kenya National Language for Education. Yes, which is very helpful for me.
Yeah.
I don't know about them, but it's very helpful for me. And just let me give you a little example about this. For example, in Luo, there's about 2,000 theological terms. In Kiswahili, there's about 20,000. In English, there's about 2 million. Okay? So the precision of English is much greater than the precision of Luo, or definitely Luo, and even Kiswahili. This is Easter Sunday, and I'm sorry, I'm so ingrained I cannot grab a camera and start shooting, but I wanted to, because we're outside because this is the building back here, and where they normally have church, and it seats about 100, but there's about 700 people here, most of whom were students from the local college. And they were invited to come for this seminar, which started during Holy Week. And so it was on Good Friday that I came there and taught, and then did a Trey Orr service for them on Friday afternoon. This is Sunday now, and Jan is the musician. And I did not have to preach on Sunday, for which I was thankful. This gentleman was one of our students, and you'll see him in a bit. I guess you won't, that's a different picture. This is Jan bringing my first catechism to her deaconess students. And this is really helpful for them, and was chosen with great care because it has all of the biblical illustrations to support the catechism itself. Where some of our newer versions just have the texts, not the references to the Bible. But this one is very good, and the students, they are very proud of their books. This gal right here is from South Sudan. These two gals are from Tanzania. The rest of them, I think, are all Kenyans. Is that correct, Jan?
Yes, from about 5 tribes.
Yeah, from about 5 different tribes. Okay. Now, I didn't mention this earlier, I probably should have. In Kenya, they have 46 tribal languages, hence 46 or more tribes. They, about half of the tribe will know Kiswahili, and about half of those who know Kiswahili will know English. If you know English, you can go to higher education. And you pay for your education all the way through, from first grade on up, or Form 1, all the way through. So children are constantly being sent home for lack of school fees. So the big request to Jan and myself is for school fees. But we're more interested in the school fees of our students because that pays for the professors, the native professors' salaries. And if they don't pay the school fees, the professors don't get paid and they're unhappy. This is the gals from Kenya gave Jan a garb, And so these two gals from Tanzania decided she should have a Tanzanian garb as well. So I don't know how they got the measurements, but it fit her like a glove. And then the students refer to her as Mama Deaconess. She also teaches public speaking, and this was last semester. Last semester. And this is one of our bachelor students, she had that class on Mondays from 8 in the morning till 4 in the afternoon for 6 weeks, and then the final exam. Okay, because you need 45 class hours, and on Tuesday they got moi for the same time period. Well, they did have 45 minutes off for lunch and 15 minutes off for tea break, as they call it. They had me for homiletics, and I looked at that schedule and I said, why would they ever do this? But it worked out great, because by the third week, they knew the distinction between public speaking and preaching. Much better than anything we could have lectured to them about. They just figured it out. That was wonderful. This is in Tanzania. Jan and I went to Tanzania in the end of January and taught a course for Concordia Theological Seminary in Fort Wayne on teaching the catechism. I taught the catechism, and Jan taught how to teach the catechism. And so we had a grand time. There were supposed to be 30 students there. Oh, for those of you who know what the Lutheran Women's Missionary League is, they provided seed money for all of those Singer sewing machines. And the ladies are learning to sew them. And then they can sustain themselves with that craft. Notice how they're powered. Treadle. Which is really good, because electricity in Africa is not reliable. This is Jan teaching, and we thought there were going to be 30 students there, 23 pastoral students, 7 diaconal students, but we found out there were 31. I just thought maybe that was African accounting. I didn't know. But there's a story that goes with that. This young lady right here, I thought had to be a deaconess student because she was bright, articulate, and probably spoke English as well as I do. Okay? As well as Swahili, which is the national language of Kenya. And anyone recognize that tune? God's Own Child, I gladly say it. That was one of the hymns in Swahili that I taught them, and they loved it, as do our students. Abigail, I found out on Friday, was raised as a Muslim. She had been talking with her auntie, this lady right here, and the bishop had invited her to come and hear the catechism talk. And this is what I was referring to in my sermon today. God works in ways that I couldn't even begin to fathom. He used Auntie, he used the bishop, he used me, he used Jan, all to bring Abigail to a knowledge of her Savior. All through the Word of God and the Holy Spirit's Word. And that Friday, Thursday night, Abigail asked the bishop to be baptized. And so Friday, after classes were ended, we were going to conclude with a service, he asked, and then he told us this story, that he had invited her. And on the way home that day, they told Jan, Abigail told Jan and myself, so at first I thought Bishop had told you what to say. He said he didn't. And then I realized that you were saying the same thing as he was. And she learned that from the word confess, to saying say. And then she realized that there was something unique about this Lutheran Christianity that she hadn't heard or seen any place else. And so she was baptized and became God's child that day. And guess what the students sang? God's own child. Okay, wonderful day. There were many tears shed. This is a graduation ceremony of some of our teacher training college students. The group here is Maasai, the group here is Luo. They all have their own dances. I wanted to show you a little bit about the Maasai dance. Has anyone ever seen a Maasai dance? Okay, now tell me what is unique about this dance. What did you notice about that? I mean, it's not the way I would dance, and not the way I could dance anymore. Those of us with bum knees don't do that, but what was unique about that?
They stayed in one spot.
They stayed in one spot and they did not bend their knees. Did you catch that? They did not bend their knees. If we were going to jump, I mean, I would do this to get as high as I could. They just, like springs in their feet. I don't know how they do it. I cannot. I have been invited to try by some of my students so they can have a good laugh. If you got the newsletter, and I see it's over there on the wall, you notice that last spring we were able to, with the help of the good people of the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod, to purchase a vehicle. And this vehicle not only is a security blanket for us, in that the nearest good medical help is about 70 kilometers away from us, 70 to 100 kilometers. It is also a very sturdy vehicle. You've seen the roads we have to drive on. This is the most expensive vehicle I've ever owned. And it's 8 years old when I got it. Okay? Vehicles in Kenya are very expensive. The reason I put this picture up here, we've just come back from a mission visit where we take our students out and they go through the liturgy with people who are interested in Swahili. They have the new hymnal, and then they had a service, and one of the students preached and the other one conducted the Lord's Supper. This man here is ordained. He's from Congo. This man is from Congo. These 3 gentlemen are from Kenya. This man here, these 2 have now graduated. This is Dr. Adlan and myself. Oftentimes Jan goes with us, but that day she had something else scheduled. This is what they're making their presentation.
I was taking the picture.
Oh, she was taking the picture. No. She usually does take the pictures. That's why I'm on more pictures than she is. But the students all were talking about what their seminary education meant to them. And endeavored to complete. This is one of our deaconess students. She's married to a pastor. These are 2 of her 3 children. And they have to pay tuition for her. They have to pay tuition for their children to go to school, etc., etc. And the pastor makes $40 per month. So this gal also worked on Saturdays doing laundry. This is myself again preaching with one of our students translating at one of our parishes. This was down on the other side of the Great Chavera Highway, about 15 kilometers. It took us an hour to get there and back because of the roads and the ruts. This is some of the pictures from the Easter's seminar. This is Good Friday. I'm talking about liturgy and worship. You can tell I'm very enthralled because I'm leaning on the... this is Jan playing at one of our services, and this is Sunday morning, Easter Sunday. That's the group of people. You can see it goes back quite far there. They were outside. And I started to tell you about the Great Easter Bunny in Kenya. I think they have a pig, because Mama Pig came walking by right down the middle of the aisle, so to speak, with about 5 little piglets trailing after her. So in Kenya they have Easter pigs. At least that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. This is a unique flower that was at the area where this seminar was held. Kakamega Forest. There is a rainforest that runs through almost the whole entire belt of Africa, and this just north of the equator. And this is part of that forest, which still remains. That's the forest area. We stayed at a mission retreat center there, and they brought us afternoon tea. This is not myself, this is Professor Adlin. This is our deaconess graduating class, Dr. Ocholo, and our deaconesses. Do you notice anything unique about them? These are their new uniforms, which contributions from, what was the place, Southern Cal, and I think St. Matthew, huh?
St. Matthew Rockland.
St. Matthew Rockland and Hope Glendora gave funding so that the deaconesses could have their uniforms to wear. And so they all, this was picture taking day, they all wore their uniforms. And what do you notice here?
American flag.
The American flag. Mama Deaconess brought them all these little scarves, and so they decided to honor Mama Deaconess by wearing them on this picture. That's how they show their respect. This gal is Maasai. That's as close to a smile as you're ever going to see her. Okay? Very few Kenyans smile. This gal is also Maasai. So it's kind of interesting. The Maasai do not smile. The Apostle Paul said, "I thank my God because of your partnership in the gospel." And one of the things I was trying to allude to this morning is everything that happens, God works for good. Paul says in one place, "I planted, Apollos watered, but God made it grow." And if we can remember that, we've got it straight. It's all of us working together within our vocations. The one who speaks to the neighbor about the love of Christ, and then introduces that neighbor to the pastor who catechizes. So, who do we say won that person for Christ? God did. It's His work, and we all are His servants. So we thank God for, because of your partnership in the gospel too, especially your prayer support, Jan and myself. It is very much needed at different times. We give thanks to you today as we invite your partnership with us to continue in this gospel that is finding such great fertile ground in Kenya. What we do is largely possible because of your vocational support. We invite you to partner with us on this wonderful opportunity, and I have a full color edition of what you saw in the bulletin there, okay? So if any of you would like to do that or speak to us further, they're up here. I will leave them here until the end of Bible class today, because God has opened some wonderful opportunities in Kenya. That is not to say there are not problems. The church there is fraught with problems. Pam can tell you that, I can tell you that. But opportunities are plentiful. And the young men coming up and the young women are solid. They're getting it. So if the Lord so directs, please feel free to speak with Jan and myself. We're going to be here for, I think, 2 more Sundays this time, this summer, before we go back. We leave the 17th. So this is the form that we have up here, and it's got, if any of you would like to personally support us with $10 or whatever per month, or whatever you want to do, that's all explained on the back page. And Synod has put this all together now for all of its missionaries. You can find them on the Synod website. It's a good thing. One of the great things that we have going for us is neither Jan or I are taking a salary. And that's a unique thing for our Synod mission program. So they didn't know where to put us because we didn't fit into their neat categories. So they finally said, okay, we're just going to call you a career missionary, and that's that. So they did that. What that allows is for us to own a vehicle in Kenya. That's what it allows. They do all the accounting, the Synod does, so we don't get involved in that, which is really a good thing. It drives me crazy just trying to keep up with some of it. And I was doing that. It took me 2 attempts to send in my expense report for this summer. And the first time the gal sent it back and said, try this again, which reminded me of my seminary days when I was taking a correspondence course, and Professor Dr. Martin Charlemagne sent a paper back, and he had a note on the top. Evidence of doing this too hastily, please retry. That's all he said. Normally, if he liked the paper, it was all full of ready, good or bad. I mean, he would mark it up. I knew I was in trouble because there was only one comment on the front page. So I redid it. Any questions or comments, any of you might have? Gary?
Two charts that were at the beginning of the presentation, the world map, and then the indicator where the missionary work is ongoing. Is that available on
They should be on the Synod's mission site.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
yeah. It's lcmsintl.org. And I think that should get you into that site. If not, go to their homepage and find missions, and that should.
Thank you.
Anything else? Yes.
How is your Swahili?
My German is better, and my German's terrible. One of the neat things about the liturgy, and I want to put in a plug here for the liturgy. No matter where I go, I know what's going on because they're following the liturgy. No matter whether it's in Luo or Kisi, I know what they should be saying. And they try to. They try very hard to do that. So the liturgy I understand, some terms I understand. Language, my brain has never been wired for language. And I struggled with every language I took, and I said it's Greek to me. And ironically, when I took Greek, that was about the only language I really got. Latin finally helped me understand English. And German, like I said, that's so long ago, I can't remember much of it anymore. And if you get away from it for a while, I forget it. Now, Jan knows much more of it than I do. She can talk to people, she can read people, she knows how to say please and thank you and something, so on and so forth in English. As soon as I have to think of it, then I'm dead. If it's just a natural response, I can do it. But as soon as I have to, what's that word now? Forget it. You know, it's way too long. So normally I would be taking Swahili courses, but I explained to people it wasn't worth a year of my life to do that for 3 years' benefit to the church max. I mean, I didn't see that. Especially since I am mandated to teach in English. That's the Kenya national policy. Higher education is in English. So because of where I fit in as a missionary, I'm not working with a tribe. As a matter of fact, within 10, 15 minutes, or 10, 15 miles, I should say, of where we're located, I can think of at least 5 different tribal languages that we speak. So if it was one language in that area, that may make sense, but it's not. If it were Kiswahili and everyone understood, that would make sense, but they don't. And so for what I do, I think that's the best choice. That doesn't mean I'm not trying. I try to pick it up, but boy, in this old brain, the gray cells are dying. Anything else? Yes?
Does all of the contribution go to your mission rather than LCMS taking a portion out for administration or anything? What is?
Well, there are certain things they mandate. For example, we are mandated to go to do a certain class. That they take out. okay? They took out the expenses for this summer at the mission orientation session. But they also are flexible with us and allow us to use those monies which have been sent for deaconess uniforms, for books. You see what I'm saying? Which is different than many. No, it's in our account. It's only spent for our
For your
costs. Yeah, so there's not, that's why we don't present the big overhead, because we don't have salary, we don't involve tax complications for them, et cetera, et cetera. But we do have to have a PIN, identity PIN, which I now have, to say that I am a legal resident alien of Kenya. Which means I don't have to pay my $50 every time I come to work. Jen doesn't have that yet. So we have to pay her $50 every time we come into Kenya or go from Kenya. Okay. But I don't. But we're working on her now to get that. So those costs they pick up. Because we had to rush to get her passport renewed, not because it was expired, but because there were no pages left in it. And there was only 2 years left, so they said, just get a new one. The good people of Synod pay for that too. Anything else? Well, it's been a joy and a pleasure speaking with you. God's blessings to you. Keep us in your prayers. I don't know, can you hit the lights there for us just a second? This is a beautiful picture. It is a sunset in Kenya. My wife has even a better one. We get some of the most gorgeous sunsets because of the cloud formations. And it just lights up the sky for miles and miles. My picture's actually better than this one. I guess it didn't like going through that lens up there. But other than that, the sunsets are great. We get a lot of rain where we are. We have 2 rainy seasons, the large rains, as they call them, and the small rains. The small rains, they're not referring to less rain, just less time, okay, that it rains. So the small rains go from mid-September to mid-December. The large rains go from mid-March to mid-June sometimes. And my first year there, it started raining on February 15th, and it rained until May 8th when I left, every day except 5. The whole time I was there. And we should bring Kenya over to California, especially Northern California. It's volcanic soil, so it does not sit around long. The rain does soak through, but it comes sometimes an inch and a half at a time. I would say it rarely rains when it's in the rainy season, less than a half inch. So it's a little bit different picture. Thank you. You can put the lights back on now. Any other final questions? If not, we shall adjourn with prayer. Let us pray. The Lord be with you.
And also with you.
Let us pray. Father in heaven, we thank you so much for the gift of your Son and for the opportunities you have given us to participate in showing forth the praises of him who has called us out of darkness into his marvelous light. We ask your blessing now upon your church in this place and throughout the world, that it may be strengthened for service to you and equipped for faithful service. All these things we ask in the name of him who is our Savior, even your Son, Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you very much.